The throne room of the Valoran Empire was the largest building Park Do-yun had ever seen. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Giant pillars made of white stone held up the roof, and each pillar was carved with the faces of ancient kings. Thousands of people stood in the great hall, but the room was so big that it still felt empty. Do-hyun stood near the back of the crowd. He was not supposed to be here. He was just a cargo pilot, a man who delivered boxes from one planet to another. His ship was small and old. His clothes were simple work clothes, not the fancy robes that everyone else wore. He had only come to this planet to deliver medical supplies to a hospital. But when he landed, the guards told him that all visitors must attend the Emperor's announcement. So here he was, standing among princes and warriors and lords from 100 different worlds. The Valorans were tall, very tall. Most of them were 7 feet high, with silver skin that shined like metal. They had 4 arms instead of 2, and their eyes glowed soft blue. They moved with grace like dancers, and they spoke in deep voices that made the air vibrate. Do-yun felt like a child standing among giants. He looked around at the other aliens in the room. There were the Crixans, a warrior race with red scales and sharp teeth. They had conquered 20 planets and feared nothing. There were the Moonfolk, thin and pale beings who could read minds. There were the Stone Lords, massive creatures made of living rock. Every powerful species in the galaxy had sent representatives to this gathering. And then there were the humans. Do-yun counted only 3, including himself. Humans were not important in galactic politics. They lived short lives, had no special powers, and had only discovered space travel 200 years ago. Most aliens thought of humans the way humans thought of insects: small, weak, and not worth noticing. A horn sounded deep and long. The crowd became silent. At the far end of the hall, Emperor Thalos walked slowly toward his throne. He was old even by Valoran standards. His silver skin had turned gray, and he walked with difficulty. But his eyes still held power, and when he sat on his throne, everyone in the room bowed their heads. Beside the emperor stood a young woman, Princess Yuna. Do-yun had heard stories about her. She was said to be the most beautiful woman in 12 star systems. Looking at her now, he understood why. Her silver skin was flawless. Her blue eyes were like 2 small moons. Her black hair fell past her shoulders like a waterfall of night. She wore a white dress that seemed to be made of starlight, but there was something sad in her face. She did not look like a princess waiting to be married. She looked like a prisoner waiting to be executed. The emperor raised one of his 4 hands. The room became completely silent. "My friends," the emperor said. His voice was tired. "My allies, my honored guests. You know why I have called you here. For 1,000 years, my family has ruled the Valoran Empire with wisdom and strength. But now I am old. I will not live much longer. And my daughter, my only child, must find a husband to continue our line." He paused. Pain crossed his face. "But there is a problem. An ancient prophecy hangs over my daughter like a dark cloud. Any man who wishes to marry her must first complete 3 trials. These trials were created by our ancestors to test the worthiness of future kings. They are not easy. They are not safe." The emperor's voice became heavy with grief. 17 suitors have attempted these trials. Warriors, princes, heroes from across the galaxy. All 17 are dead. Whispers spread through the crowd. Do-yun saw fear on the faces of even the bravest warriors. "The trials cannot be removed," the emperor continued. "They are bound to my daughter's bloodline by ancient magic that even our greatest scientists cannot understand. If she does not marry, our royal line ends with her. The empire will fall into chaos. Wars will tear apart everything we have built." The old emperor stood up from his throne. It seemed to take all his strength. He looked out at the crowd with desperate eyes. "So I ask you now, before all these witnesses, before the eyes of history itself, is there no one brave enough to marry my daughter?" The silence that followed was the loudest thing Do-hyun had ever heard. No one moved. The Crixan warlords, who had faced death 1,000 times, looked at the floor. The Stone Lords, who could crush mountains with their bare hands, stood like statues. The Moonfolk, who could see the future, closed their eyes and said nothing. Princess Yuna's face did not change. She had expected this. She had seen it 16 times before. Hope would walk into the room, and then hope would die when she saw the fear in everyone's eyes. Doyun watched all of this from the back of the room. He was nobody. He had no power, no wealth, no army. He was just a man who flew a small ship between the stars, carrying boxes that nobody cared about. But something was happening inside his chest, a feeling he could not explain. When he looked at the emperor's face, he saw his own father. His father had died 3 years ago, alone and sad, after losing Do-hyun's mother to sickness. Do-hyun had been too far away to say goodbye. That memory still hurt like a fresh wound. Now here was another father, watching his daughter's future die in front of him. Another father with no one to help him. Before Do-hyun knew what he was doing, he was walking forward. The crowd noticed him. People turned to look. Whispers started immediately. "What is that? Is that a human? Surely not. This must be a joke." Do-hyun kept walking. His heart was beating so fast that he could hear it in his ears. His legs felt weak. Every step was harder than the last. But he did not stop. He walked past the Crixan warriors who laughed at him. He walked past the moon folk who looked at him with pity. He walked past the stone lords who did not even notice him. Finally, he reached the bottom of the steps that led to the throne. He looked up at the emperor. He looked at Princess Yuna. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He bowed. "My name is Park Do-hyun," he said. His voice was small in the giant room, but it did not shake. "I am a human. I am a cargo pilot. I am nobody important. But I volunteered to take the trials." The room exploded with noise. People shouted. Some laughed. Others cursed. A Crixan warrior yelled that this was an insult to the royal family. But the emperor raised his hand, and everyone fell silent again. He looked down at Do-hyun with an expression that was hard to read. Surprise, yes, but also something else. Something like hope. "Human," the emperor said softly. "Do you understand what you are asking for? You will most likely die." Do-hyun nodded. "I understand." "Then why? Why would you throw away your life?" Do-hyun thought about his father. He thought about all the times he had been too afraid to act. He thought about all the regrets he carried like stones in his chest. "Because someone had to," he said simply, "and no one else was going to." The emperor stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. "Very well, Park Do-hyun of Earth. Your courage, or your foolishness, has earned you the right to try. May the stars watch over you." Princess Yuna looked at the human with curiosity in her eyes. This small, fragile creature had just volunteered to die for her. She did not understand why, but somewhere deep in her heart, a tiny spark of hope began to glow. The palace gave Do-hyun a room on the lowest floor, far away from the royal chambers. The room was meant for servants, not for suitors. The message was clear. Nobody expected him to survive. Nobody wanted to waste a good room on a dead man. But Do-hyun did not complain. The room had a bed, a window, and a small desk. That was more than he had on his cargo ship. He sat on the bed and stared at the ceiling, wondering what he had gotten himself into. A knock came at his door that same evening. When he opened it, Princess Yuna stood there alone. She wore simple clothes instead of her royal dress. Her face was serious. "May I come in?" she asked. Do-hyun stepped aside, too surprised to speak. Yuna walked into the small room and looked around. Then she turned to face him. Her blue eyes studied him like he was a puzzle she could not solve. "Why did you do it?" she asked. "Tell me the truth." Do-hyun thought about the question. He could give her a noble answer. He could say that he wanted to save the empire or protect the innocent. But those would be lies. "I do not know exactly," he admitted. "When I saw your father's face, I thought about my own father. He died alone and sad. I could not help him. I was too far away, too slow, too scared. When your father asked if anyone would help, I felt that same feeling again. The feeling of standing still while someone suffers." He paused and looked at his hands. "I did not want to feel that way again, so I moved. I did not think. I just moved." Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke again, her voice softer now. "You will die, you know. The first trial alone has killed warriors who could break mountains with their fists. You are human. You have no special abilities, no enhanced strength, no mental powers, nothing. I know, Do-hyun said. Then withdraw. I am asking you personally. Go back to your ship and fly away. I will give you gold. I will give you a new ship. You can live comfortably for the rest of your human life. Just do not throw that life away for me. Do-hyun looked at her. He saw something in her eyes that he had not expected. Guilt. She blamed herself for all the men who had died trying to marry her. Princess, he said gently, those 17 men who died before me. Did you ask them to come? No. Did you force them to take the trials? Of course not. Then their deaths are not your fault. And my death, if it happens, will not be your fault either. It will be my choice. Yuna stared at him. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Every other suitor had been full of pride and boasting. They had talked about their armies, their victories, their strength. This human talked about choice and responsibility. You are strange, she said finally. Do-hyun smiled. I have been told that before. Yuna almost smiled back. Almost. Then she turned and walked to the door. Before leaving, she looked back at him one more time. The first trial is in 7 days. Use that time wisely, Park Do-hyun. Then she was gone. The next morning, Do-hyun began his research. He knew he could not win through strength. He was not strong. He was not fast. He could not read minds or control fire or turn invisible. If he was going to survive, he needed to be smart. He went to the palace library, but the guard stopped him at the door. The library is for nobles only, one guard said with a sneer. Cargo pilots are not welcome. Do-hyun did not argue. He simply walked away and tried to think of another plan. That evening, a young Valoran woman approached him in the palace gardens. She was short for her species, only 6 feet tall, and she wore the simple clothes of a servant. Her name was Ji-woo. You are the human, she said. It was not a question. I am, Do-hyun replied. I watched you step forward yesterday. I thought you were crazy. I still think you are crazy. She paused. But I want to help you. Do-hyun was surprised. Why would you help me? You do not know me. Ji-woo sat down on a stone bench and looked up at the sky. The 2 moons of the Valoran homeworld hung above them like silver coins. 5 years ago, she said, a terrible sickness spread through the lower districts of this city. Thousands of Valorans died. The royal doctors did not care about servants. They only helped nobles. We were left to suffer. Her voice became thick with emotion. But then a human medical ship arrived. They had heard about the plague. They came without being asked. They treated everyone, servants and nobles alike. They saved my mother. They saved my brother. They saved me. She looked at Do-hyun with tears in her eyes. Humans saved my family when my own people would not. I have never forgotten that. Now a human needs help, and I will not stand by and do nothing. Do-hyun felt a warmth spread through his chest. Thank you, Ji-woo. Thank me after you survive. Now come with me. I know a way into the archives. Ji-woo led him through secret passages that only servants knew. They went down old stairs and through dusty hallways until they reached a hidden door. Behind that door was the palace archives, thousands of years of records and histories. The guards only watch the main entrance, Ji-woo explained. No one watches the servant passages. You can study here at night when everyone else is sleeping. For the next 6 nights, Do-hyun read everything he could find about the 3 trials. He learned that they were created 3,000 years ago by a Valoran philosopher named Sage Hanuel. The sage had designed the trials not as tests of strength, but as tests of character. The more Do-hyun read, the more he understood. Every previous suitor had failed because they approached the trials as battles to be won. They had used force, power, and aggression, but that was not what the trials truly tested. The first trial, the Labyrinth of Mirrors, tested self-acceptance. The second trial, the Beast of Sorrows, tested compassion. The third trial, the Sacrifice, tested love. Strength could not pass these tests. Only wisdom could. On the 6th night, Do-hyun finally closed the old books and sat back in his chair. He thought he understood now. He was not sure if he could succeed, but at least he knew what he was facing. The next morning, Lord Kang found him in the palace courtyard. Kang was a powerful noble, tall even for a Valoran, with cold eyes and a cruel mouth. He was one of the richest men in the empire, and everyone knew that he wanted to marry Princess Yuna himself, but he was too cowardly to take the trials. Instead, he had spent years trying to find ways around them. Now he stood in front of Do-hyun with hatred in his eyes. "You are the human pest that has caused so much trouble," Kang said loudly. Other nobles gathered to watch. "You have insulted our empire by thinking you are worthy of our princess." Do-hyun stood calmly. "I volunteered when no one else would. If that is an insult, then your empire has a strange definition of honor." The crowd gasped. No one spoke to Lord Kang that way. Kang's face twisted with anger. "You are nothing but a prey animal, a short-lived worm. You will die in the first trial, and everyone will forget you ever existed." Do-hyun smiled peacefully. "Perhaps, but at least I will die trying to help someone." "What will you die doing, Lord Kang? Counting your gold? Hiding from challenges?" Kang raised his hand as if to strike Do-hyun. But then he noticed Princess Yuna watching from a balcony above. He lowered his hand slowly. "We will see who survives," he hissed. "We will see." He turned and walked away, his robes flowing behind him. That night, Jiwoo visited Do-hyun one last time. "Are you ready?" she asked. Do-hyun looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home. He might never see it again. "No," he admitted, "but I will go anyway. That is all any of us can do. Go forward, even when we are afraid." Jiwoo nodded. "Then may your ancestors watch over you, Park Do-hyun, and may you prove them all wrong." Tomorrow the first trial would begin. The ship carried Do-hyun to an asteroid floating in the darkness between stars. The asteroid was hollow inside, and within that hollow space was the labyrinth of mirrors. The ancient structure had existed for 3,000 years, waiting for those brave or foolish enough to enter. Princess Yuna and Emperor Thalos watched from the ship as Do-hyun walked toward the entrance. So did Lord Kang and dozens of nobles who had come to see the human fail. Cameras broadcast the moment across the entire empire. Billions of Valorans watched on their screens, expecting entertainment, expecting death. The entrance to the labyrinth was a simple doorway carved into black stone. No decorations, no warnings, just a dark opening that seemed to swallow all light. Do-hyun stood before it and took a deep breath. He thought about everything he had learned. The labyrinth of mirrors did not kill with blades or fire. It killed with truth. It showed each person their deepest fears, their worst memories, their secret shames. Most people went mad within hours. Their own minds destroyed them. The only way to survive was to accept everything the labyrinth showed. Not to fight it, not to run from it, just to accept it as truth. Do-hyun stepped inside. The darkness swallowed him immediately. He could not see his hand in front of his face. He walked forward slowly, touching the walls to guide himself. The stone was cold and smooth. After what felt like hours, he saw a light ahead. He walked toward it and found himself in a circular room filled with mirrors. Hundreds of mirrors covered every wall, the ceiling, even the floor. His reflection stared back at him from every direction. Then the reflections began to change. In one mirror, he saw himself as a child. He was sitting alone in a schoolyard while other children played together. No one invited him to join. No one noticed him at all. The loneliness of that memory hit him like a punch to the chest. In another mirror, he saw his mother. She was lying in a hospital bed, thin and pale. She was dying, and there was nothing he could do. He had been 20 years old, and he had stood there helpless, watching the life fade from her eyes. "You could not save her," a voice whispered. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You were weak. You are still weak." Do-hyun felt tears forming in his eyes. "Yes," he said out loud. "I was weak. I could not save her." The mirrors shifted. Now he saw his father, broken and empty after losing his wife. The old man had stopped eating. He had stopped speaking. He had simply waited to die. "You abandoned him," the voice whispered. "You ran away to space because you could not stand to watch him suffer. You left him alone." The pain of those words was almost unbearable. Do-hyun sank to his knees. "Yes," he whispered, "I ran away. I was a coward." More memories came. Every failure, every mistake, every time he had been too afraid to act. The labyrinth showed him everything and demanded that he face it. He saw the friends he had lost because he did not know how to keep them. He saw the dreams he had abandoned because he did not believe in himself. He saw every moment of his life when he had chosen the easy path instead of the right path. You are nothing, the voice said. You have always been nothing. You will die here, forgotten and alone, just like everyone who came before you. Do-Yun lay on the floor of mirrors, surrounded by his own broken reflections. The weight of his failures pressed down on him like a mountain. Part of him wanted to give up. Part of him agreed with the voice. Maybe he was nothing. Maybe he deserved to die here. But then he thought about something his mother had told him long ago. She had been sick for months, and one night she had held his hand and smiled. Do-Yun, she had said, being human means making mistakes. It means failing again and again. That is not weakness. Weakness is refusing to try again. As long as you keep trying, you are strong. He lay there in the labyrinth, remembering her words, and slowly something changed inside him. He sat up. Yes, he said to the mirrors, I am flawed. I have failed many times. I have been weak and afraid and selfish. All of this is true. He stood up slowly, facing his own reflection. But I am still here. I kept going. Every time I fell, I got back up. Every time I failed, I tried again. That is what humans do. We are not strong. We are not powerful, but we do not give up. The mirrors flickered. My mother died, and I could not save her, but I held her hand until the end. My father suffered, and I ran away. But I came back before he died, and I told him I loved him. I have lost friends and dreams and pieces of myself, but I am still here, still trying, still hoping. He walked forward, straight toward the largest mirror. You want me to hate myself? I have already done that. You want me to feel worthless? I have felt that way for years, but I am done fighting against those feelings. I accept them. They are part of me, and I accept myself, all of myself, the good and the bad. He placed his hand on the mirror. I am Park Do-Hyun. I am nobody special, but I am exactly who I am supposed to be. The mirror cracked beneath his palm. Light poured through the crack. More cracks spread across every mirror in the room, and more light flooded in until the darkness was completely gone. When Do-Hyun could see again, he was standing at the exit of the labyrinth. Behind him, the ancient structure was silent. Before him, the stars shined bright and clear. He had been inside for 3 days. He had not eaten or slept. His body was exhausted, but his mind was clearer than it had ever been. The ship landed nearby, and Princess Yuna was the first to run out. She stopped in front of him, her eyes wide with disbelief. You survived, she breathed. Do-Hyun smiled tiredly. I am as surprised as you are. Back on the ship, the Emperor himself came to speak with Do-Hyun. The old ruler looked at the human with new respect in his eyes. No one has completed that trial in 400 years, the Emperor said. The strongest warriors in the galaxy have fallen to those mirrors. How did you survive? Do-Hyun thought about the question. I did not try to win, he said. I just accepted the truth. Lord Kang watched from the corner of the room, his face dark with anger. This was not supposed to happen. The human was supposed to die. Now he would have to find another way to stop him. That night, Princess Yuna visited Do-Hyun in the medical bay, where doctors were treating his exhaustion. I need to ask you something, she said. In the labyrinth, you faced your worst fears. What did you see? Do-Hyun was quiet for a moment. I saw everyone I have failed, everyone I have lost, every time I was not good enough. How did you survive that? He looked at her with tired but honest eyes. I have already lived with those memories every day of my life. They are old friends by now. The labyrinth showed me nothing I had not already faced 1,000 times. Yuna sat down beside his bed. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The second trial is worse, she finally said. The beast of sorrows has killed more suitors than anything else. It feeds on pain and despair. No weapon can hurt it. Do-Hyun nodded slowly. Then I will not try to hurt it. Yuna looked at him with confusion. What do you mean? But Do-Hyun's eyes were already closing. He fell asleep with a small smile on his face, dreaming of nothing at all. The prison of the beast of sorrows lay deep beneath the imperial palace. For 10,000 years, the creature had been locked in that darkness, alone and hungry. It had been captured by ancient Valoran warriors who sacrificed their lives to trap it. Now it waited in eternal night, feeding on whatever scraps of misery drifted down through the stone. When a suitor came to face it, the beast finally got to feast. Doyun stood at the top of a long staircase that led down into blackness. Beside him stood Emperor Thalos, Princess Yuna, and the high priest who would judge the trial. Lord Kang was there too, watching with eager eyes. He was certain the human would die this time. The beast cannot be killed, the head priest explained. It has no physical body. It is made of pure sorrow, given form by ancient magic. It will attack your mind, filling you with despair until you lose the will to live. Many suitors have simply stopped breathing when they faced it. Their hearts gave up. Doyun nodded. How do I complete the trial? You must spend 1 hour in the chamber without dying. That is all. Simply survive for 1 hour. It sounded simple. It was not. Doyun looked at Princess Yuna. She was trying to hide her fear, but he could see it in her eyes. She did not want to watch another person die because of her. I will see you in 1 hour, he told her. Then he began walking down the stairs. The darkness grew thicker with each step. The air became cold and heavy. By the time he reached the bottom, he could not see anything at all. He could only hear the sound of his own breathing, and then he felt it. The beast of sorrows was not something you could see or touch. It was a presence, a weight that pressed against your soul. It was the feeling of losing everything you loved. It was the certainty that nothing would ever be good again. It was hopelessness made real. Do-hyun felt it wash over him like a wave of ice water. His knees buckled. His breath caught in his throat. Tears began streaming down his face without his control. He saw his mother dying again. He felt his father's grief again. Every sad memory he had ever experienced came flooding back, but worse, 100 times worse. The beast amplified everything, feeding on his pain and creating more. Most suitors tried to fight at this point. They screamed and raged and attacked the darkness. But that only made the beast stronger. Anger was just another form of pain. Do-hyun did not fight. Instead, he sat down on the cold stone floor. I know you are there, he said into the darkness. His voice shook, but he kept speaking. I can feel you. You are very old, are you not? 10,000 years in this place. That is a long time. The pressure on his mind increased. More sorrow flooded into him. He felt like he was drowning in sadness, but he kept talking. I have been reading about you, Do-hyun said. The ancient texts say you were not always like this. You were something else before, something beautiful. You were a spirit of empathy, able to feel the emotions of all living things. But that gift became a curse. You felt too much. The weight of a galaxy's suffering drove you mad. The darkness seemed to shift around him. Something was listening. They trapped you here because they were afraid of you, but they never tried to help you. They never tried to understand. For 10,000 years, you have been alone with all that pain. Do-hyun wiped the tears from his face. His heart ached, but not just from his own memories anymore. He was feeling something else, something that was not his, the beast's pain. I am sorry, he said softly. I am sorry that no one has ever said that to you. I am sorry that you have suffered so long. The pressure on his mind flickered. For just a moment, the assault weakened. Do-hyun continued speaking. He talked about his own pain, the losses he had experienced, the loneliness he had felt. He did not try to be brave or strong. He simply shared his truth with the creature in the darkness. I know what it is like to be alone, he said. I know what it is like to feel pain that never ends. I spent years running from those feelings, but I have learned something. Pain does not go away when you run from it. It only grows. The only way to heal is to face it, to accept it, to let someone else share it with you. He reached out his hand into the darkness. You do not have to be alone anymore. The darkness was silent. The assault on his mind had stopped completely now. He could feel something hovering just beyond his fingertips, something massive and ancient and broken. Time passed. Minutes or hours, he could not tell. He simply sat there with his hand extended, waiting. And then slowly, he felt something touch his fingers. It was cold and strange, but also somehow gentle, like a wounded animal allowing itself to be touched for the first time. The beast of sorrows had never experienced kindness. For 10,000 years, every person who entered this chamber had come to fight it or resist it, or destroy it. No one had ever tried to understand it. No one had ever offered it compassion. Do-yun closed his eyes and let himself feel the creature's pain. Thousands of years of loneliness and confusion flowed into him. It was almost too much to bear. But he did not pull away. He accepted it all. "You are not a monster," he whispered. "You are just hurt. We are all just hurt." The beast made a sound. Not a roar or a scream, but something else. Something like a sigh of relief. Something like a sob. For the first time in 10 millennia, the beast of sorrows felt peace. When the priest opened the door 1 hour later, they found Do-yun sitting calmly in the darkness. He was tired and pale, but alive. More than alive. He was smiling. "The trial is complete," the head priest announced, his voice filled with disbelief. "The human has survived." Lord Kang stared in horror. This was impossible. The beast had killed Valoran champions. It had destroyed minds far stronger than any humans. How could this weak little creature have survived? Princess Yuna rushed down the stairs to Do-hyun's side. "Are you hurt? What happened in there?" Do-hyun stood slowly, his legs unsteady. "I made a friend," he said simply. Yuna did not understand, but she helped him climb the stairs anyway. That night, the priest reported something strange. The beast of sorrows, for the first time in recorded history, was quiet. It was not pressing against its prison, searching for victims. It was simply resting, calm and peaceful. Word spread through the palace. The human had not just survived the beast, he had tamed it. No one knew how. No one could explain it. Emperor Thalos called Do-hyun to his private chambers. "You continue to surprise me," the old emperor said. "2 trials completed, 1 more remains. The sacrifice." He paused, his eyes heavy with worry. "That trial has no rules, no time limit, no clear path to success. It asks you to give up what you love most. Many suitors have offered treasure, armies, even entire planets. All were rejected." Do-yun nodded. "What were they missing?" "I do not know. No one knows. The sacrifice has not been completed in over 1,000 years." Do-yun looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his tiny blue home, his family, his memories, his entire life. "When does it begin?" he asked. "Tomorrow." Do-yun took a deep breath. He had come this far through acceptance and compassion. But sacrifice was different. Sacrifice meant giving up something real, something precious. What did he have to give? He was about to find out. The night before the final trial, Do-yun could not sleep. He walked through the palace gardens under the light of the 2 moons. The flowers here were strange and beautiful, colors that did not exist on Earth. Everything on this planet was bigger, brighter, more overwhelming. And yet, after all these weeks, it had started to feel like home. He sat down on a stone bench and thought about what tomorrow would bring. The sacrifice. The trial that had defeated every suitor for 1,000 years. Even the mightiest warriors who had passed the first 2 trials had failed this final test. What did they sacrifice? He had read the records. One prince had offered his entire kingdom. Another had offered 10,000 ships. A warlord had offered to destroy his own army. All were rejected. The ancient mechanism that judged the trial had found them unworthy. Do-hyun had nothing like that to offer. No kingdoms, no ships, no army. He was just a man with a small cargo ship and a few boxes of belongings. What could he possibly sacrifice? Footsteps approached. He looked up and saw Ji-woo walking toward him. She was carrying a small pot of tea, steam rising into the cool night air. "I thought you might be awake," she said. "I brought something to warm you." Do-yun smiled and accepted the tea. "Thank you, Ji-woo, for everything. I could not have made it this far without your help." Ji-woo sat beside him. "I did very little. You are the one who faced the mirrors and the beast. I just showed you where the books were. You showed me kindness when no one else would. That is not a small thing." They sat in comfortable silence, drinking tea and watching the moons move slowly across the sky. "Are you afraid?" Ji-woo asked finally. "Yes," Do-hyun admitted, "but I have been afraid before. Fear is just a feeling. It does not control me unless I let it." "What will you sacrifice?" Do-hyun shook his head. "I do not know yet. I am hoping the answer will come when I need it." Jiwoo looked at him with admiration. You are very brave, Park Do-yun, or very crazy. Maybe both. Do-yun laughed softly. Probably both. They finished their tea and Jiwoo stood to leave. But before she walked away, she turned back. I want you to know something, she said. Whatever happens tomorrow, you have already changed things. Humans were invisible before. People looked right through us like we did not matter. But now everyone is watching you. They are seeing a human do impossible things. You have given us hope. Do-hyun felt a warmth spread through his chest. Thank you, Jiwoo. That means more than you know. She smiled and disappeared into the darkness of the gardens. Do-hyun sat alone for a while longer, thinking about her words. Then he stood and began walking back to his room. The night was quiet and peaceful. That was when the assassin struck. A shadow moved behind him. He heard the hiss of a blade cutting through air. He turned just in time to see a figure in black rushing toward him, a glowing knife aimed at his heart. But before the blade could reach him, another shadow leaped from the darkness. Ji-woo. She had not gone far. She had been watching over him. She threw herself between Do-hyun and the assassin. The blade meant for his chest struck her instead, sinking deep into her side. The assassin cursed and fled into the night. Do-hyun did not chase him. He dropped to his knees beside Ji-woo, who had fallen to the ground. Ji-woo! No! 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 He pressed his hands against her wound, trying to stop the blood, but it flowed between his fingers, dark and thick. It is okay, Ji-woo whispered, her voice weak. I protected you. Do not talk. Save your strength. I will get help. He lifted her carefully and ran toward the palace. He screamed for help as he ran, and soon guards were rushing to meet him. They took Ji-woo from his arms and carried her to the medical center. Do-hyun followed, his hands covered in her blood. The Valoran doctors worked quickly, but their faces were grim. They identified the poison on the blade immediately. It was called nightshade, a toxin designed specifically to kill Valorans. There was no cure. Most victims died within hours. There is nothing we can do, the head doctor told Do-hyun. The poison has already spread too far. She will be dead before sunrise. Do-hyun stood frozen. His mind raced through everything he knew, every piece of information he had gathered, every cargo he had ever carried. And then he remembered. 3 weeks ago, when he first arrived on this planet, he had delivered medical supplies to a hospital. Those supplies had included an experimental human antidote for a poison called belladonna. Belladonna was similar to nightshade, not identical, but similar enough that it might work. Where are the supplies I delivered when I arrived? He demanded. The medical shipment. Where is it? The doctors looked confused, but a nurse checked the records. Most of it has been distributed, but some boxes are still in storage, waiting to be sorted. Take me there. Now. They led him to a storage room filled with boxes. Do-hyun searched through them frantically, reading labels and tossing aside containers until he found what he was looking for. A small vial of clear liquid. The experimental antidote. He ran back to Ji-woo's bedside. This might work, he told the doctors. It is designed for a similar poison. The chemistry is close enough. The head doctor shook his head. That is human medicine. It has never been tested on Valorans. It could kill her faster. She is already dying, Do-hyun said. This is her only chance. The doctors hesitated. Then Ji-woo opened her eyes. She was barely conscious, but she heard the argument. Let him try, she whispered. The doctor stepped back. Do-hyun injected the antidote into Ji-woo's arm. Then he sat beside her bed and held her hand. There was nothing more he could do except wait. The hours passed slowly. Ji-woo's breathing was weak. Her silver skin had turned pale gray. Several times the monitors showed her heart rate dropping dangerously low, but she did not die. By morning, something had changed. Her color was returning. Her breathing was stronger. The monitors showed the poison retreating from her system. The doctors were amazed. The human antidote was working. Not perfectly, but enough. Ji-woo was going to survive. Do-hyun sat back in his chair, exhausted. He had been awake for over 30 hours. His hands were still stained with Ji-woo's blood. He felt like he might collapse at any moment. But then the palace guards arrived at the medical center. They were dragging a man in chains. Lord Kang. "We caught the assassin," the guard captain announced. "He confessed everything. Lord Kang paid him to kill the human suitor. He did not want the trial to proceed." Lord Kang's face was twisted with rage. "This is a lie. This is a conspiracy against me." But the evidence was clear. The assassin had been carrying gold coins stamped with Kang's personal seal. Messages on his communication device connected him directly to Kang's household. Emperor Thalos arrived moments later. His face was like stone. "Lord Kang," the emperor said coldly, "you have committed treason. You attempted to murder a suitor under my protection. You endangered the future of this empire for your own selfish ambition." Kang fell to his knees. "Mercy, your majesty. I did it for the empire. This human is not worthy." "Worthy?" The emperor's voice was sharp. "This human just saved a Velaran life with medicine from his own world. He showed more honor in one night than you have shown in your entire life." He gestured to the guards. "Take him to the prison. He will face judgment after the trials are complete." As Kang was dragged away, he looked at Do-yun with pure hatred. "This is not over, human. You will fail. You will die. And I will laugh from my cell when they carry your body out." Do-yun said nothing. He simply turned back to Jiwoo, who was now sleeping peacefully. Princess Yuna entered the medical center and stood beside him. She looked at Jiwoo, then at Do-yun. "You saved her life," she said softly. "She saved mine first." Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke again. "The final trial begins in 4 hours. You should rest." Do-yun shook his head. "I do not think I could sleep even if I tried." She sat down beside him. Together they watched the sun rise through the medical center window. A new day was beginning. The final trial awaited. The great throne room was even more crowded than it had been on the day Do-hyun first volunteered. Word had spread across the 12 star systems. A human had survived 2 impossible trials. A human had tamed the Beast of Sorrows. A human had saved a Valoran life with alien medicine. The galaxy was watching. Billions of beings from hundreds of worlds had tuned into the broadcast. On space stations and colony ships, in homes and palaces, everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Would the humans succeed where so many others had failed? Or would he die like all the rest? Do-yun stood at the center of the throne room floor, still wearing the same clothes from the night before. He had not slept. He had not changed. There had been no time. Dark circles hung under his eyes and his movements were slow and tired. But his gaze was clear. Emperor Thalos sat on his throne, looking older than ever. Princess Yuna stood beside him, her hands clasped tightly together. She had not slept either. She had spent the night worrying about the man who had somehow become important to her. The head priest stepped forward and raised his arms for silence. The crowd obeyed immediately. "Park Do-hyun of Earth," the priest announced. "You have completed the trial of mirrors and the trial of the beast. Now you face the final test, the sacrifice." He gestured toward an ancient altar in the center of the room. The altar was carved from black stone and covered with symbols that glowed with soft light. "This altar has judged every suitor for 3,000 years, the priest continued. "It cannot be fooled. It cannot be deceived. It sees into the heart of whoever stands before it and measures the truth of their sacrifice." The priest turned to face Do-yun directly. "You must offer something precious, something real, something that costs you dearly to give. If the altar accepts your sacrifice, you will pass the trial and earn the right to marry Princess Yuna. If it rejects your offering, you will die instantly." The crowd murmured nervously. Die instantly, no second chances, no opportunity to try again. Do-yun walked slowly toward the altar. With each step, he thought about what he could offer. He had no wealth, no power, no armies or kingdoms. He was just a human, a cargo pilot from a small blue planet far away. What did he have that was precious? He thought about his cargo ship, the only thing of value he owned. But that seemed too small. A ship was just metal and circuits. He thought about his memories, his connections to Earth, his family and friends back home. But those were not things he could give. They would always be part of him. And then, standing before the ancient altar, he finally understood. There was only one thing he had that was truly precious. One thing that cost him dearly to give. One thing that no other suitor had ever offered. Time. Do-hyun turned to face the crowd. He looked at Princess Yuna, and she looked back at him. In that moment, something passed between them. An understanding, a connection. He spoke, his voice carrying across the silent throne room. "I am human," he began. "We are not strong like the Crixans. We cannot read minds like the Moonfolk. We do not live for centuries like the Valorans. A human life is short, 80 years if we are lucky. Often less." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Princess Yuna will live for 500 years, maybe more. If I marry her, I will spend perhaps 50 years at her side. Then I will grow old. My hair will turn white, my body will weaken, and eventually I will die, while she remains young and beautiful." Tears formed in Yuna's eyes. She understood now. She understood what he was about to offer. "Every other suitor came here thinking about what they would gain," Do-hyun continued. "They wanted power. They wanted glory. They wanted to rule an empire. They offered treasures and armies because they thought marriage was a transaction, something to profit from." He turned to face the altar. "But I have nothing to gain from this marriage. I will never be emperor. I will never command fleets or conquer worlds. I will simply love someone for a few brief decades, and then I will leave her alone." He placed his hand on the cold black stone. "So here is my sacrifice. I offer my future. Every day I have left. Every moment I might have spent on earth with my own kind. Every year I might have lived in comfort and safety. I give it all up, willingly and completely, to spend whatever time I have loving Yuna." His voice grew stronger. "I cannot offer wealth because I have none. I cannot offer power because I have none. I can only offer myself, all of myself, the good and the bad, the strengths and the weaknesses, the laughter and the tears, everything I am and everything I might become." He looked directly at Yuna. "I offer my life, not just my death. My life, every sunrise I will witness with her, every conversation we will share, every quiet moment in the gardens, every challenge we will face together. I offer all of it, knowing that it will end too soon, knowing that she will have to continue without me." The throne room was completely silent. Even the whispers had stopped. Everyone was watching, waiting, holding their breath. "That is the sacrifice of humanity," Do-hyun said softly. "We know we will die. We know our time is short, and we choose to love anyway. We choose to build and create and hope, even though we know it will all end. That is not weakness. That is strength. The strength to love something even though you will lose it." He closed his eyes. "I offer my mortality. I offer my brief and beautiful life. I offer the only thing I truly have to give." The altar began to glow. The symbols on its surface lit up one by one, brighter and brighter. The light spread across the floor, up the walls, until the entire throne room was bathed in golden radiance. The ancient mechanism that had judged suitors for 3,000 years had awakened fully for the first time in over a millennium. And then a voice spoke. Not the voice of the priest, not any living voice. The voice of the altar itself, speaking words that had not been heard in 1,000 years. "Sacrifice accepted." The light faded slowly. Do-hyun opened his eyes. He was still alive. He was still standing before the altar, and the crowd was exploding into noise. People were shouting, crying, cheering. The priests were staring in disbelief. The nobles were arguing with each other. Soldiers banged their weapons against their shields in celebration. Emperor Thalos rose from his throne, his old face wet with tears. He walked slowly down the steps until he stood before Do-hyun. "In 3,000 years," the emperor said, his voice shaking, "no one has ever offered what you just offered. They gave objects. You gave yourself. They offered things they owned. You offered the only thing you truly are." He placed a hand on Do-hyun's shoulder. "You have passed the 3 trials, Park Do-hyun of Earth. You have earned the right to marry my daughter, and you have earned my respect." Princess Yuna walked down from the throne. She stopped in front of Do-hyun, looking at him with eyes full of wonder. "You meant it," she whispered. "Every word. You actually meant it." Do-hyun smiled tiredly. "I have never meant anything more." And then in front of the emperor and the priests and the entire watching galaxy, Yuna kissed him. The throne room erupted once more. History had been made. A human had won. The wedding of Princess Yuna and Park Do-hyun was the largest celebration in the history of the Valoran Empire. Ships came from every corner of the galaxy. Representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered to witness the union. The ceremony was broadcast to trillions of beings who watched from their homes, their ships, their distant colonies. Doyun stood at the altar in the great temple, wearing robes of white and gold that the royal tailors had made specially for him. The fabric was lighter than anything he had ever worn, soft as clouds. He felt like a stranger in these fine clothes, a cargo pilot pretending to be a prince. But then Yuna appeared at the entrance of the temple, and all his doubts vanished. She was beautiful, not just physically beautiful, though she was that too. She was beautiful in the way the stars were beautiful, distant and bright and full of mysteries. Her silver skin glowed in the temple light. Her white dress flowed behind her like a river of moonlight, and her eyes, those deep blue eyes, were fixed on him and him alone. She walked down the aisle slowly, and with each step, Doyun's heart beat faster. This was real. This was happening. A cargo pilot from Earth was about to marry a princess of the stars. The ceremony was long and filled with traditions that Doyun did not fully understand. Priests chanted in the ancient Valoran language. Incense filled the air with strange, sweet smells. Bells rang at specific moments for reasons he could not guess. But none of that mattered. All that mattered was Yuna's hand in his, warm and real. When the head priest finally announced them married, the temple exploded with cheers. Flower petals rained down from above. Music swelled from instruments Dohyun had never seen before. And Yuna smiled at him, the first true smile he had ever seen on her face. "We did it," she whispered. "We did," he agreed. The celebration lasted for 3 days. There was feasting and dancing and singing. Diplomats from every major species came to offer congratulations. Even the Crixan warlords, who had once laughed at the idea of a human suitor, bowed their heads in respect. But for Do-hyun, the most important moment came on the second night. He was standing alone on a palace balcony, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, far beyond what he could see, was Earth. His home, his people, everything he had left behind. Footsteps approached. Yuna came to stand beside him. "Are you having regrets?" she asked quietly. Doyun shook his head. "No, I was just thinking about how far I have come. A few months ago, I was delivering boxes to planets I did not care about. Now I am married to a princess and standing on a palace balcony. Does it feel strange? Everything feels strange, but also right. Does that make sense?" Yuna smiled. "It makes perfect sense." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars together. Then Yuna spoke again, her voice soft and uncertain. "Do-hyun, I need to tell you something." He turned to look at her. "What is it?" "I am afraid." She paused, struggling to find the right words. "Not afraid of you, not afraid of our marriage. I am afraid of what comes after. You will age, you will grow weak, and someday you will die. I will have to watch it happen. I will have to live for centuries after you are gone." Tears formed in her eyes. "How can I bear that? How can I love someone knowing I will lose them so soon?" Doyun took her hands in his. He thought carefully about what to say. "Yuna, humans have asked ourselves that question for thousands of years. We love our parents, knowing they will die before us. We love our children, knowing they might die before us. We love our friends and partners and pets, knowing that every relationship ends in loss." He gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. "But here is the secret we learned long ago. The pain of loss is proof that love was real. The grief we feel when someone dies is the price we pay for the joy they brought while they lived. And it is worth it. It is always worth it." Yuna listened, her eyes searching his face. "I will not be with you forever," Doyun continued. "No one can promise forever. But I can promise you this. Every day that I have left, every morning when I wake up beside you, every evening when we watch the stars together, I will love you completely. Not halfway, not cautiously, completely." He smiled. "Humans live short lives, so we learn to live deeply. We do not have time to waste on half-hearted love. When we love with everything we have. That is my gift to you. Not years or centuries, just intensity, just presence, just my whole heart for as long as my heart keeps beating." Yuna stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed softly, a sound of wonder and joy. You are remarkable, Park Do-yun. I do not think I truly understood humans until I met you. We are not so complicated, he said. We are just trying our best, like everyone else. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Then let us try our best together. They stayed on the balcony until the sun rose, talking about their hopes and fears, their plans and dreams. By the time the morning light filled the sky, they knew each other better than before, and they were no longer just husband and wife. They were partners. News of the wedding spread quickly across the galaxy, but it was not just gossip, it was a turning point. For the first time, other species began to look at humans differently. On the Crixan homeworld, a warlord who had mocked humans for centuries gathered his advisors. We underestimated them, he admitted. If one human can accomplish what their strongest warriors could not, perhaps we should pay more attention to their species. On the Moonfolk Council, elders debated the meaning of Do-hyun's victory. He did not win through power, one elder said. He won through understanding. Perhaps there are forms of strength we have never considered. On trading stations and colony ships, in universities and military academies, beings from every corner of the galaxy were asking the same question. What else were humans capable of? What had everyone been missing? The Valoran Empire signed a formal alliance with Earth, the first major treaty humanity had ever achieved with a galactic superpower. Trade routes opened. Cultural exchanges began. Humans were no longer invisible. They had a place at the table. And at the center of it all was Park Do-yun, a cargo pilot who had simply stepped forward when no one else would. Years passed. Do-yun's hair turned gray, then white. His steps became slower. His hands became wrinkled. But his love for Yuna never faded. They faced challenges together, celebrated victories together, and grew old together. At least one of them did. On his last day, Do-hyun lay in their bedroom, surrounded by flowers from 100 worlds. Yuna sat beside him, holding his hand just as he had held hers so many years ago. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for stepping forward that day. Thank you for choosing me. Do-hyun smiled weakly. Thank you for letting me love you. It was the greatest adventure of my life. He closed his eyes. Tell everyone, he murmured. Tell everyone that the shortest life lived with love is longer than the longest life lived alone. And then peacefully, he was gone. Yuna wept for him. The Empire mourned him. Statues were built in his honor, but more importantly, his story was told. Across the galaxy, beings of every species heard the tale of the human who won through kindness, survived through acceptance, and sacrificed everything for love. And when young humans looked up at the stars and wondered if they mattered, their parents told them about Park Do-hyun, a nobody who became somebody, a cargo pilot who married a princess, a short-lived human who changed the course of history, because that was the lesson of his life. You do not need power to make a difference. You do not need armies or wealth or special abilities. You just need courage. You just need kindness. You just need the willingness to step forward when everyone else is stepping back. In the end, that is the strength of humanity, not our technology, not our numbers, just our stubborn, beautiful, irrational belief that love is worth the pain, that hope is worth the risk, and that one person, no matter how small, can change everything. The stars still shine tonight, and somewhere among them, the story of Park Do-hyun lives on.